to Disambiguation. I'm your host, Michael Fawcett. Each week, we interview experts in AI, generative AI, and business automation to help business leaders understand how to use these tools for the biggest business impact. Welcome to the year-end special. We introduced the show in August of this year, August 5th to be exact. And in the past 5 months, we've dropped 20 episodes on AI across a broad range of subjects. We've interviewed 22 experts, including 3 on-location events at Salesforce Dreamforce, Sugar Connect in London, and Dell Tech ProjectCon. In today's show, we're going to do something a little different. We're going to take a look at a few of the trends that we are talking about for next year that are already published on the Arion Research blog earlier this month. And I just want to go through that and give you a little idea of what we think is going to happen next year around generative AI, around customer experience, and also around a list of 5 emerging tech trends that we think are interesting to watch for next year. So this year obviously was the year of at least the start of the conversation on generative AI. And as companies realized its potential, they started to push the boundaries of human creativity, efficiency. Moving into next year, though, I think there's several areas that are really interesting around generative AI. One of them is simply the innovation cycle itself, and we've kind of gotten used to the idea in tech that we're in almost always anyway, in an accelerated innovation cycle. But with the AI space, particularly generative AI, I'd say this one is hyper speed, if that's a good way to think of it. Over the next year, we think generative AI is going to continue to evolve rapidly, reinforcing and compounding its role that it played in 2023, especially in the area of democratizing and consumerizing artificial intelligence. Generative AI providers are going to make several improvements. Some of the things that we think we're going to see: increased conversational fluency. The conversational UI paradigm is really expanding quickly, and as we get more and more used to that, there are more and more places where I think it's going to show up. You're going to see efforts to continue to improve response accuracy. There's already been a lot of efforts around grounding and using some other technologies there, and it's important from a trust perspective, to see that accuracy improve. You're going to the providers are going to provide better tools for improving prompts, or maybe even more likely, you're going to start to see more effective orchestration layers that move that prompt engineering back a level, which then enables any user to converse with the tool in a more natural way. And already seeing this particularly in the business application provider space, which we'll talk about a little bit more in a few minutes. But that's one of the ways that you start to see these applications evolve into tools that anyone could use, because you don't have to be an expert in the prompt engineering. Increase the capabilities of generative AI apps. They're going to add multimodal capabilities. You're going to see, making most popular offerings more of a one-stop shop for creating a variety of content, including images and video. You've already started to see this in the most popular one, ChatGPT. You now can generate DALL-E images. You can create a variety of content from that one interface, which is handy and certainly makes the tool much more productive and capable, I think. Retrieval augmented generation, RAG. You've probably heard about this, or at least heard the title kicked around a little. You're starting to see that. I mean, even in the application provider, Salesforce last week announced the incorporation of that RAG technology, and also there's a more advanced form that's called self-reflective RAG. And those are going to become the default capability to minimize hallucinations in most generative AI offerings. RAG's an AI framework, basically, that retrieves facts from an external knowledge base to ground the large language model on the most accurate, up-to-date information. Now, And that's looking at it from the large language model perspective. If you look at it from the business perspective, you're actually providing a data source for the large language model to pull, more accurate, up to date, and contextual information. The process involves two main phases: retrieval and content generation. So, the proliferation of Gen AI application startups are going to continue, and you're going to see that demand for those single purpose apps that I mentioned continue to grow, um, as well. Multimodal, the desire for more effective orchestration layer UIs, and then self rag is an advancement of rag, which adds a layer of self reflection to the model's process. So self rag enhances the process by generating multiple responses in parallel, and then uses that self reflection model to judge which response is the best. Now, from business application providers, there's several things that you'll see there. We've already started to see them embedded in a lot of the enterprise applications that the business application providers have. You're going to continue to see that expand with more generative AI, across all of the enterprise application areas. Their use cases across almost every function in a business right now, and you're starting to see more and more of those. So, we've talked a lot about marketing, some extent around sales, some around customer service, but now you're going to see that conversation, moving into finance and supply chain and logistics and field service. There are a lot of different areas that I think will be really interesting there. Democratize the use of these tools. This is back to this idea of moving prompt engineering away from the user and into the middle layer, which will, simplify that user interaction with the tools at the orchestration layer of the user interface, right? So more conversational and less need for prompt engineering skills for the user, because the tool itself then starts to help make sure those prompts are optimized, they have the right context. And then of course if you add, rag to that, it then helps reduce the chance of hallucination, grounds the model better. So all those things are going to make that much easier for everybody across the business to use. And build more applications tailored for individual industries. We've talked already about Gen AI for retail. We had a show on Gen AI for life sciences and one on Gen AI in higher ed. So we're going to do more of those shows next year, because this is definitely going to be an area of expansion. Healthcare and retail, e-commerce, going to see more and more expansion there. All across these different industries, there'll be more specialized applications, and you're going to see more and more startups that will offer those, those specialty tools. Now, for businesses, they're going to continue to focus on the immediate outcomes for generative AI projects, which has really this year been focused on productivity gains. And that's where you've seen most of this. A lot of the use has been pilots, or individuals are using it to increase productivity. You're seeing some, moves to make it across a team, some businesses more into it now than they were 12 months ago, whatever. You're going to see a lot of these projects, they'll move from this kind of proof of concept world to pilot projects into full production, application uses there. Increase investments in generative AI. I mean, in the survey that we ran in August, 87% of the respondents said that they plan to increase their spending on AI and generative AI over the next year. I think that's, that's a trend that you're going to see continue. This is particularly in this idea of vertical use cases. I think that's going to be a big driver. I mean, we saw this in cloud. Originally it was very horizontal, and now industry clouds are very important for different industries to get these additional capabilities. You're going to see the same thing from the AI world, the AI platform as well. Building internal training programs to close the skills gaps. I mean, we're definitely see issues around finding talent, filling positions. And since they aren't able to fill them in the general marketplace, you're going to see companies start to invest more and more in the capability to teach those skills themselves. and grow their own expertise in those different areas. The early adopter companies are going to start shifting from those immediate outcome focus, the productivity focus, to more of a strategy that systematizes end-to-end solutions. So this is one of the big shifts for those leading edge companies that this year were really all about applying Gen AI to productivity. Next year, you're going to start to see more and more systematic end-to-end solutions that use AI, generative AI, to across the whole process of that application. The explosive growth of new generative AI startups is going to continue broader availability and adoption of generative AI embedded in enterprise apps, offering take increasing volume of compute power and infrastructure. And I think this is one of those areas where we're going to start to see a bit of a compute famine, if you want to call it that, for both power and infrastructure. And also, of course, that means that when there's scarcity, there's price. So you're going to see prices go up for that infrastructure that is going to be in very big demand. Now, I also mentioned, and that's what we see for for generative AI in general. But I mentioned, customer experience trends, and I'm not going to go through every one of those here, but I do want to go through the ones that were related directly to AI, generative AI. So when you think of generative AI and customer experience, and again, we've talked about those areas, sales, marketing, customer service a lot, but utilizing generative AI to streamline processes, generate insights, and offer personalized solutions, is very important, and it really transformed customer service into a more intuitive and anticipatory model. You're starting to see, Gen AI for simulating customer interactions, and this is one of those areas that I'm really excited about, and actually I talk about this a little bit more too in the in those emerging trends area. But the idea of creating synthetic customers, AI powered virtual entities that mimic real customers, and then using generative AI to predict and address potential pain points. And this this really allows you to reshape that customer experience with the predictive analytics. So you actually are testing your interactions in real time before you have that interaction with that customer. You can definitely increase satisfaction. You can increase cross sell, upsell. I mean, there's a lot of opportunity there, simply by applying this idea of a digital twin, effectively, synthetic customer to simulate those interactions. Um, Chatbots, you're going to see evolution there. You're going to see more advanced chatbot technology for personalization, accuracy, responsive customer interactions. Chatbots have a lot of capability, and that's just going to continue to evolve. Sentiment driven strategies. So, utilizing sentiment analysis for understanding and responding with precise customer specific responses can, create emotional engagement using NLP, natural language processing, and generative AI to create and enhance empathic customer journey. So that shifts that idea of the customer journey a lot from the static into an active and interactive, and then bases that on the ability to understand the emotional state of the interaction, and improve that dramatically. And that also, of course, relates back to the idea of the synthetic customer, where you could actually test some of those interactions before you do them. Generative AI and machine learning for proactive customer service. We've talked a lot about customer service this year. Strategically integrating generative AI machine learning for predictive customer service, and then also for individualized customer service. And this goes to assistance for the customer service agent. It goes to those more intelligent chat bots that can be on the front end to help resolve certain issues very quickly in real time. Then pass the more complicated ones to an agent, who then also has that assistant to help them find information much more quickly, resolve issues, get answers, etc. Individualized experiences. Personalization has evolved a lot. And when we first really talked about personalization, it was really this sort of segment driven idea that that was much broad segmentation, then we got more specific segmentation, and over time, now with the with the generative AI based systems, we can really get down to an individualized, real time streaming data. In e-commerce, retail, for example, you can implement predictive systems that actually have a content management system, a CMS that individualizes your product offering, description, even the image. Right? You can, and if you're interested in that, you should listen to the Gen AI and retail episode because we talk quite a bit about that idea that I can have contextual descriptions, images, colors, even. So, that I often click on the blue one instead of the red one, you'd make the item blue or whatever, right? So there's a lot of data there that can be used to really change that shopping experience. Down to an individualized experience, which is much more effective. Dynamic customer journeys using technology to, that includes generative AI to create these personalized, adaptable paths that drive interaction with customers based on real time behavioral feedback. So, dynamic journeys that are optimized, individualized, to accompany interaction or response in the context of the customer's behavior relevant to the stage of the individual. The concept of dynamic customer journeys acknowledges that each customer's experience is unique, constantly evolving, requiring businesses to be more flexible, responsive in marketing and sales. And so you can really see how that sales strategy, that marketing strategy can be much more effective because it takes into context all this data to create that dynamic journey. And then you've heard this conversation a bit beyond SEO. Generative AI is really starting to disrupt the search engine optimization world, and even your use of search engine. Now you see, on the search engine side, you're starting to see the search engines with generative AI built in, and of course, on the generative AI side, you've seen them, gain that real time internet connection for effectively search. I mean, ChatGPT, OpenAI's tool, is connected now to Bing, and Bing then runs that internet piece of the search to pull all that additional data back in. That's important. Content creation and optimization. I mean, generative AI simplifies that a lot, we know, and it can optimize for SEO. So it can certainly change, the way content performs and change that SEO world quite a bit. Technologies, has human-like creativity, which aids in the generation of relevant, high-quality SEO optimized content. Diverging views on the SEO impact. I mean, you're starting to hear some people talk about how this is a big disruption for the SEO space, and some believe that it really could redefine it or maybe even signal the end of SEO the way we know it today. Because as more and more people use the generative AI tool in place of search, that certainly changes the way that content is viewed and dealt with. Integration into search engines, I mentioned that already, and then that change in behavior in general from consumers who are getting much more comfortable using the chat interface with generative AI versus going to the search engine. And then finally, just a few emerging trends that I mentioned, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time with these, but you can read the posts on the Arion site, which give you a lot more detail around this. But here are 5 things that I think are really important to watch for next year. AI and application stores. You heard OpenAI announce theirs, and it's going to come out early next year. So you'll have a lot of these AI companies will have an app store, just like you've seen in the enterprise, App Exchange at Salesforce, et cetera. And so that marketplace then will have a lot of these individualized, specialized applications that are built on top of the large language models to do, maybe one specific thing. Like seen several companies come out with these very limited applications that do a thing and do it really well. You're going to see more and more of those. Generative AI is the platform, and I wrote a fairly long piece on that in the piece that we published on the site on these trends. So you should definitely take a look at that. But if you think about it, for consumers, it's this transition to the personalized internet with conversational UI. For businesses, it's enhancing productivity, and then this systematic integration that we talked about. Quantum computing and AI. There's a ton of opportunity here. Obviously, there's quantum computing's been talked about for years, and there's certainly a lot of advances there. There's some question about when this will happen, but but definitely with the capability of the combination of the two, quantum computing and AI, you could see enhanced, computational power, which will, increase the speed, increase the accuracy, increase the breadth of what you see, improve machine learning algorithms because of that, solving complex problems. So you can definitely see the increase there. And then just in general, the impact on generative AI could be very large. I mentioned synthetic customers before. That's number four on this list as well, and I wrote a good bit more about that. If you want to take a look at that, I think that's one of the really interesting emerging areas for use of the technology. Large vision models. So we heard a lot this year about large language models. Next year, going to think I think you're going to start to hear more and more about these large vision models, which are, models that process, interpret visual data. They're large in the sense that they're trained just like large language models. They're trained on vast data sets. They have a high number of parameters, enabling them to recognize, categorize, interact with a variety of visual inputs. So some you're going to hear more and more about them next year as we see more of an expansion on that side. So, like I said, there's a lot more in that post, and I won't belabor that. You can go check it out yourself. Anyway, so that's it for this episode and for 2023. It's been fun to kick the show off and get things moving, and I really appreciate you all coming back, listening, subscribing. We're going to be on holiday now until January, so look for a new episode early January. We got some really interesting guests lined up for next year, and we're obviously going to continue to explore artificial intelligence, generative artificial intelligence, business automation, all of those topics, including several shows that we have lined up on different industry verticals, which I think are going to be, one of the hot topics for next year, as I said earlier. Anyway, so I wish you all happy holidays, and hopefully you're all getting a bit of a vacation, a break, and we will see you all in January.